My name is Katerina, and I have a story that happened to me 9 years ago. My grandmother told me that when a person dies, they may give you a sign before their passing. I didn't believe her because I thought it was just an old superstition with no scientific evidence. I have a sister. Her name is Clementina. She was the perfect sister for me, kind, sweet, and someone that I always got along with, my best friend. On April 18th, 2015, I was home alone. Clementina was on a trip with her friends, while my parents were attending my cousin. I felt sleepy since it was already late. I immediately went to bed and fell asleep. I was suddenly awakened by someone gently caressing my hair and singing my favorite lullaby. Even in the darkness of my room, I immediately recognized who it was. It was Clementina. I called her name and asked her what time she had come home, but she didn't respond. I told her to go back to sleep, but she didn't listen. She just kept singing my favorite lullaby while caressing my hair. It was strange because she never really sang, and she continued, and her voice started to sound cold and eerie. Suddenly, the temperature dropped in my room. My body became stiff. I couldn't even move a single finger. I was frozen. I hoped this was just a nightmare, but it was real, and I didn't know what to do. Paralyzed with fear, I couldn't push her away or run. A few moments later, she finally stopped and said these words.
I'll miss you in heaven, Katerina.
Her voice was chilling. After saying those words, she stood up and left my bed. I sighed in relief. Was she drunk? Sleepwalking? I didn't know why she acted this way. When I woke up in the morning, I found my parents crying in the living room. Confused, I asked them what was wrong. What my mother said gave me goosebumps.
Your sister passed away last night in a car accident.
My mother sobbed. I stood there, frozen. I couldn't believe what she was saying. A wave of shock and grief washed over me. Then I remembered what had happened the night before. I thought about the superstition my grandmother had told me. I also remembered what Clementina had said before leaving. I'll miss you in heaven. Had my sister given me a sign about her death? How did I not realize it? My mind filled with questions, but the one thing I couldn't accept was that she was truly gone. 10 years have passed since that night. While writing this, I still can't help but feel sad about my sister. I still struggle to accept that she said goodbye to us at such a young age. But one question still lingers in my mind. Was she giving me a sign? Why did she seem so eerie? Why did she sound so creepy? Maybe it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. Or maybe it wasn't. Hello, Lindsay. I always kept thinking, what if they hadn't taken that route? What if they hadn't shouted for the men to stop? Where would that homeless man be now? I believe I used to wake up really early, around 3 a.m., to study because I thought it helped me understand better and it was nice and quiet. On this particular day, we had an exam at school, so I was tired and hungry when I got home around 9 p.m. My plan was to sleep early and wake up later to study for another exam the next day. I felt upset because there was very little food left for me that night in the fridge. Instead of having a meal, I spent time scrolling through my phone. The battery was running low and I didn't notice how much time had passed. Suddenly, it was 11 p.m., and I had to decide whether to charge my phone or use it as an alarm. I didn't have an alarm clock by my bed, and the charging outlet was in the living room. If I charged it in there, I was afraid I wouldn't hear the alarm. So I decided to set it for 2 a.m. to make sure the battery wouldn't die and the alarm would still work. When the alarm went off at 2 a.m., I noticed that my bedroom door was wide open. At first, I thought my mom had checked on me while I slept, as she often did, and had forgotten to close the door. But that felt strange. She had never forgotten before. If she had, it would have annoyed me a little bit and I would have noticed. I laid there for a minute, staring at the dark corner of my room. The mosquito net above my bed made everything even darker, and I couldn't see the room clearly. After a minute or two, I decided to get up and pull back the net. To my shock, someone or something emerged from behind the open door. This person had been crouching there the whole time, waiting for me to make a move. Frozen in fear, I screamed as I tried to run out of the room. To my horror, we both lunged for the door at the exact same time, and I found myself face to face with a man I didn't recognize at all. He raised his index finger to his lips, signaling for me to be quiet. Then, he ran out of my room, into the kitchen, and out the front door of my house. I pounded on my mom's bedroom door, yelling and screaming. When she opened it, I was terrified, and I told her there was a man in my room. I cried and begged her not to go outside because I was afraid he might still be in the area. We screamed for help from inside, hoping our neighbors would hear us. Fortunately, one of our neighbors happened to be coming home and rushed over. He woke up the others and asked for assistance. When we checked the house later, we thought it might have been a robbery because my school bag was on the kitchen table, its contents scattered everywhere. But I couldn't stop thinking about the terrifying possibilities because I distinctly remember placing my school bag in my bedroom. Why did he go back to my room? I'm just thankful I set my alarm earlier than 3 a.m. and decided not to charge my phone. Because if I had set it for 3 a.m., what could have happened in that extra hour? And if I had charged it, I wouldn't have woken up to the alarm, and who knows what might have happened. I guess I was just lucky that day. We tried to find the person, but he was never caught. After I graduated, my family and I moved to a bigger city. Be careful out there. You never know who's looking. Hi, my name is Ovi, and this story happened when I was around 12 years old. My family lived far away from my extended relatives, my grandparents, uncle, aunt, and cousins, so we only visited them twice a year. My grandfather owned a large house at the end of a very long road lined with homes on either side. A few houses away from ours, right next to a park, stood a massive, abandoned mansion. It was infamous in the neighborhood. People spoke about it in hushed tones. Strange things always seemed to happen there, with no explanation. Dead birds were often found inside, and once a neighbor's cat was discovered lifeless within its walls. But the creepiest part? The entire ground floor and front gate were covered in old, faded cartoon stickers. They were meant to look playful, but over time, they'd become eerie, like the cartoon faces were crying. One night, my cousins and I, being typical adrenaline-filled kids, decided we had to check it out. We planned carefully. My two older cousins, who were the same age, would sneak in first. Once they confirmed it was safe, they'd radio us on the walkie-talkie, and then us younger ones would follow. After dinner, the older cousins left first. About 10 minutes later, we heard their voices crackle through the walkie-talkie.
Come on, it's fine. No danger. Just get here fast.
Excited yet uneasy, we grabbed our torches, sneaked out while the adults were distracted, and ran to the house. Standing outside, looking at those unsettling stickers, we hesitated for a moment. But then, from upstairs, we heard our cousins calling down to us.
We're up here. Come on.
Something felt off. Their voices sounded normal, but something deep in my gut told me not to go inside. My younger cousins must have felt it too, because we all hesitated.
Nope, we're not coming up. We're leaving.
We shouted back.
You should leave too.
Then, without waiting for a response, we bolted back home. But the moment we stepped inside, our stomachs dropped. Sitting on the couch, happily eating ice cream, were our older cousins. We froze.
How did you guys get home before us?
We asked, with our voices shaking. They looked confused.
What are you talking about? We never went to the mansion.
One of them said. Our blood ran cold. They explained that their mom had overheard our plan and warned them not to go. Instead, she sent them out to buy ice cream to distract us. They hadn't even brought their walkie-talkies with them. So then, who had called us on the walkie-talkie? Who had we heard inside that mansion? Terrified, we told our mothers everything. Their faces went pale. That's when they finally told us the mansion's dark history. Years ago, a family of 4 had lived there. A man, his wife, and his elderly parents. The wife used to run a small daycare, which is why the house was decorated with cartoon stickers to amuse the children. One day, the family decided to move to a bigger city after the man got a better job offer. But on the way there, they were in a brutal accident, and no one survived. After that, the mansion was abandoned. The remaining relatives were still fighting over its ownership, which left it in a state of decay. By now, we were trembling, and over the next week, strange things started happening to us. My bicycle, one I had for years, suddenly lost its brakes while I was riding downhill. I crashed hard, injuring my arm, leaving scars that I still have to this day. My cousins had minor accidents too. Cuts, bruises, strange falls. Even my grandmother felt uneasy. Fearing something had attached itself to us, she took us to a priest. He gave us protective threads to tie around our wrists and recited prayers over us. Thankfully, after that, nothing else happened. The mansion is currently being renovated, but even now, whenever I pass it, I can't shake the thought, what would have happened if we listened to that voice and gone upstairs?
My name is Ali, and I live in Sudan. I've been wanting to share this story for a long time. I'm the second oldest of my siblings after my sister, who is 18. I'm 17 years old. My story happened when I was 11 years old. We were a normal family. My mom was pregnant at that time. After 9 months of pregnancy, my mom gave birth to my new sister, and I rushed to the hospital to see her. She was really cute. Unfortunately, my dad couldn't see her in person, but I did a video call. He was working in another country. My dad cried with joy when he saw her. After my mom got treatment, the neighbors were waiting for her to congratulate her, and my mom's brother, my uncle, was staying with us. During the celebration party, this old lady suddenly approached my mom and congratulated her. My mom was surprised at first, but said thank you without really thinking very much. Later, all the family members ate dinner at night and went to bed after about 10 p.m., but I woke up suddenly at 3 a.m. because I wanted to use the bathroom. As I was walking to the bathroom, I saw a silhouette of someone in my mom's room. I didn't think much of it because, well, I thought maybe my uncle was checking on us. Then, as I was leaving the bathroom, I saw something shocking. My uncle was throwing someone on the floor, punching them. He was yelling at me to go to my room and not come out. A few minutes later, I hear police sirens, and I could hear them and my uncle talking, but I couldn't hear them very clearly. After the police left, my uncle told us to go back to sleep. The next morning, I asked my uncle what had happened yesterday. He said something shocking. He said that when he went to the kitchen to get some water, he saw a man kidnapping my newborn baby sister. My uncle got angry and quickly ran to the man, hitting him, grabbing my sister. The man ran to my uncle and they fought. That's when I came out of the bathroom and saw everything. A few hours later, the police knocked on my door. My uncle opened the door, looked confused when he saw the policeman. When the officer said something, my uncle froze. The officer told him that the man who had broken into our house had actually been paid to kidnap my sister. My uncle was shocked, asked who had paid them. Then the officer told him it was that old lady who had come to congratulate my mother yesterday. Moreover, it was revealed that she had kidnapped and sold 4 other newborns to anonymous people before my sister was born. The old lady was fortunately arrested, and she and the man were sentenced to life in prison. But what would have happened if my uncle hadn't come out to drink water that night? I thank God every day for protecting my newborn sister. I'm now 17, and my sister is 6 now. We never told my father about what had happened that night.
One night, my mother was coming home from school on the bus. The bus wasn't full, but it had plenty of people already on it. One woman in particular got my mother's attention right away because she started staring at my mother's belly. My mother was pregnant at the time, but this woman would not look away, and she began getting closer and closer until it became extremely obvious that this woman was up to something. Sensing something was off, the girl sitting next to my mother also felt uneasy and asked if she wanted to switch seats. As time went by, the woman continued to stare at my mother's belly. That triggered my mom to remember a superstition. If someone has no philtrum, there is a high chance that they are not human. A philtrum is a vertical indentation in the middle area of the upper lip. In our country, there is a creature called a whack-whack. It is said to be a human during the day, but a monster at night, capable of transforming into a bird. These creatures often appear during festivals and offer people food, but legend says you should never eat what they offer you. My mom heard this story from her grandmother when she was very young, and it was widely believed in the area where they lived. Until my mother got off the bus, the woman continued staring at her, and after finally getting off, the woman followed her. My mom deliberately went the other way, but the woman followed close behind. My mother walked as fast as she could toward a crowded area and then quickly darted out to try to find a ride. Luckily, a taxi was there and a man provided her a ride to get out of the area. She finally got home and ran inside. My grandfather was waiting for her, and as soon as he saw her, he quickly wrapped his arms around her and picked her up. When my mom asked why, my grandfather said he had seen a big bird and knew that the creature was in the area. Nothing dangerous happened in the end, but after that, my mom often heard knocking on the window at random parts throughout the day. One day, my mom's friend, who lived in the neighborhood, came for a visit. She said she had seen a woman outside her window, someone who looked strange and lacked a philtrum. My mom realized that the woman she saw was exactly the same as the one that her friend had encountered.
I was 13 years old when this scary incident happened, and I lived on the 7th floor of an apartment building. I was coming home from school with my older brother, who was a year older than me. And when we got to the building, we tried to take the elevator, but it didn't work. So my brother told me to take the stairs. So I agreed, and he went up to the 7th floor faster than me. When I got to the 4th floor, I heard the sound of someone walking in high heels below me. I thought it was my neighbor who lived on the 4th floor, and I wanted to say hello, so I waited for her to come. But all I could hear was the sound of high heels getting closer. So I just went back upstairs. That night, I went to sleep because I had to go to school the next day. Then, I woke up in the middle of the night, sweating all over my body. I wondered why, but I thought it was just because it was hot, so I opened the window. I fell asleep again, but woke up again in the middle of the night. My whole body was drenched in sweat again. I was confused. I thought it was nothing, tried to go back to sleep, but I couldn't move. I was scared. I didn't want to open my eyes, but I saw something standing in the corner of the room. Then suddenly, the shadow started jumping at me. I screamed and tried to move, and I realized that I was literally in sleep paralysis. I'd seen on YouTube that moving your feet could help you get out of sleep paralysis, so I tried moving my feet, and luckily, it worked. I was so scared that I ran to my parents' room and woke my mom up. I cried, told her what had happened, and she started praying for me. And when I woke up the next day, I heard shocking news. My neighbor on the 4th floor had died for unknown reasons. She was wearing red high heels and a red dress. It was like she was going to a party, and her cat was found dead in the bathroom. I was shocked. That night, I woke up again in the middle of the night and couldn't move, and I saw something shocking right before my eyes. It was a woman in a red dress with a cat. I realized she was my neighbor on the 4th floor who had died the day before, but her face was very pale, and her cat was covered in blood. I closed my eyes, and I started praying. When I woke up the next morning, luckily, there was nothing in my room. I didn't tell my parents. I thought I was just hallucinating. But I really have so many questions. Why did this happen to me? And why did she come to my room?
Hey, I'm a really big fan of your channel, and I wanted to share a story my dad told me when I was younger. When my dad was around 16 years old, he was working on a ranch in Idaho. His job was to wrangle the horses that always ran off deep into the mountains. He would always use his own horse, Angel, to go and catch them. My dad said Angel was a funny horse because she always acted like a dog, very playful and full of energy. Every so often, when the horses ran off even deeper than normal, my dad would pass by an old, abandoned shack that looked like it had been falling apart for years. Every time he passed it, the hair on the back of his neck would stand up, and he'd get an eerie feeling. But it wasn't just him. Angel, his normally playful horse, would start bucking and snorting at the sight of the house. That really freaked my dad out. One day, while he was in town, he ran into another ranch worker who had been there for a few years. They started chatting over lunch, and since the guy knew the area so well, my dad asked, "What's the deal with the creepy rundown house?" As soon as he said that, the man's friendly smile changed into something else, a strange, unsettling grin. "You really want to know, kid?" the man asked. My dad said yes, and so the man told him this story. Back in the mid-1900s, a man named Frederick Beale lived in that house. Everyone just called him Beale. He didn't want to live near civilization, so he built the house in the mountains with his own 2 hands and lived there for many years. Each summer, Beale would come down into town, where the locals always expected him. He'd stock up on supplies before heading back into the mountains. He wasn't a mean old man. Actually, he was quite friendly, so the townspeople always looked forward to his visits. During the summer, he lived off the food he bought in town. In the winter, when heavy snow made the trip impossible, he hunted animals to survive. But then one year, the townspeople noticed something strange. Beale never came down for his usual summer visit. Days passed, and then weeks, and finally months, and people started to worry. After a while, the sheriff and a few deputies rode out on horseback to go and check on him. As they neared the house, they immediately knew something was wrong. The forest was too quiet, unnaturally quiet. When they arrived, they saw that everything was boarded up, and a foul stench hung in the air. After forcing the door open, they stepped into the living room, and what they found made their stomachs drop to the floor. Beale's rotting corpse lay on the ground, a single bullet hole in his head, a gun still held in his hand. It was obvious he had taken his own life, but why? The officers searched the house for clues and eventually found a crumpled up note in his coat pocket. The handwriting was messy and uneven, but they were able to read it after looking closer. The note read, "Help me, God! I've gone blind!" The town was shocked. The old man had lost his eyesight. With no way to make it back to town and no way to hunt, he must have realized there was no hope, or he didn't have any. Rather than starving to death, he made a choice. After hearing that story, my dad swore that every time he passed by that house, it felt like someone was watching him.
This is not my story, but my grandfather's. This incident happened in Tijuana, Mexico, in the late 70s, when my grandfather was in his late teens. One evening, he decided to go to the movies alone. He arrived at the theater, bought his ticket, and sat down in the theater. While he was watching the movie, for some reason he decided to look around. That's when he noticed this woman sitting nearby. They looked at each other for a moment, and the woman walked over and sat down next to my grandfather. They started holding hands, and then, drawn by the strange atmosphere, they started kissing. Meanwhile, he noticed that she was unnaturally cold. He gave her his jacket as a friendly gesture, and soon the movie was over. They were planning to walk across the street to a bar, but she said that she needed to use the bathroom. She told him, just wait outside the bathroom. She gave him his jacket back and gave him a ring, saying that she was actually homeless. My grandfather was a little taken aback, but he didn't think much of it and decided to wait outside the bathroom as she had said. But 5 minutes passed, and she still hadn't come out of the bathroom. My grandfather watched all the other women come out of the bathroom except for that woman, and after 10 minutes, she still hadn't come out. He went to the manager, asked if he had seen anyone like that woman in the bathroom. The manager told my grandfather that he had never seen anyone like that. My grandfather insisted that the manager go and check. When the manager checked, the woman was not in the bathroom. My grandfather was about to give up looking for her, but then he remembered that during a conversation with the woman earlier, she'd mentioned that she worked at the bar that they were going to go to. So my grandfather decided to leave the theater, walked to the bar, smoked a cigarette, and looked around. He met the bartender, asked him about the woman, and the bartender said that he didn't know any women like that working there, and that he would ask the owner. After a few minutes, the owner approaches my grandfather, asks again, who was he looking for? My grandfather described the woman again, and suddenly, the owner's face changed. His expression became solemn, and he looked at my grandfather as if he were crazy. Then my grandfather showed him the ring that she had given him in the theater, and the owner looked shocked, told my grandfather that it couldn't be true. My grandfather asked what he meant by that, and the owner told him the woman had been murdered about a year ago. My grandfather was shocked, left the bar, and went home. This incident stuck in his memory. He still thinks about it sometimes. Sometimes he doubts the situation, tells himself that the owner just thought of the wrong woman, but then he remembers the ring he showed the owner couldn't be another woman. He doesn't know if it was a spirit of some kind, a doppelganger, but all he knows is that the girl he met that night was not a normal human being. Also, the fact that she was unusually cold still makes him uneasy. He still thinks about what happened that night.
Hi, I'm Diana, and I live in the United States. This happened in Massachusetts, and is one of the reasons I became a horror junkie, because the paranormal seemed to follow me throughout my childhood. Everything I'm about to say is the truth, exactly as I remember it. Most of my childhood is a blur, but this memory has never faded. I think we all struggle to recall much of when we were babies. It feels like an extended period of nothingness. But for me, there's one thing I remember with absolute clarity. When I was a baby, up until I was 2, my family lived in the basement of a stranger's house. We had almost nothing, just a mattress on the floor, 2 cabinets, and a few pieces of sparse furniture in a small, dusty room. My parents were immigrants, and we were just getting by. The details of that space are hazy now, but what happened at night is something I'll never forget. Every evening, my loving, protective parents would tuck my sister and I onto the mattress while they took the floor. The lights would go out, and one by one we would fall asleep. But in the middle of the night, I would wake up, and every time I saw them, big, white hands, like those of a mime reaching out from beneath the cabinet. The hands moved with deliberate motions, drawing shapes in the air, waving, beckoning. I remember staring, transfixed. Sometimes I would reach out, trying to touch them, but before I could, my mother would stir, pull me back, and lull me to sleep. This happened over and over. I remember those hands so vividly. They looked normal, but they weren't. And what disturbed me the most was that I never saw who or what they were attached to. When I was 2, we moved into a real home, leaving that basement for good. And somehow, the memories of the hands faded, buried under the warmth of a new life, until I turned 14 years old. That day, my older sister and I were reminiscing about our childhood, laughing about our old home, until she asked me,
Did you ever see those hands?
I froze. My stomach dropped.
What hands?
I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She hesitated before continuing.
The hands that came from under the cabinet at night. The white ones, they would reach for us.
My heart pounded. I felt like I couldn't breathe. How did she see them too? I had spent years convincing myself they weren't real, that they were just the overactive imagination of a child. But she saw them as well. We sat there, shaken, trading details. How they moved, how they looked, how we never saw a body attached to them. Was that basement haunted? Were those hands trying to take us? Later, I did some research and I found something chilling. Many people have reported seeing similar hands during childhood, but not white ones. Theirs were green or black.
This is a scary incident that happened to me when I was a college student. I remember it was the day after Halloween, when I was a freshman. You'll soon find out why I remember this. I remember waking up late in the morning, having to get up quickly to get to campus for my chemistry lab. My roommate was probably disturbed, as I kept making noise and rushing to head out. Since no buses would come at this time, I had no choice but to walk all the way to campus, which is like a 10 to 15 minute walk from my dorm. As I was walking on the street, it was quiet. There weren't that many students around, especially after a Halloween weekend. I'm not surprised. As I made my way uphill, I suddenly saw a large, tall man wearing what looked to be a Scream Ghostface costume, staring at an old homeless man that seemed to be curled up with his blanket on a bench. I was taken aback, since Halloween was over now, and now that classes have resumed, it's a bit odd seeing this man dressed up at such early time in the morning. At first, I didn't know what to make of it, knowing I had to hurry to my lab to be allowed inside, so I didn't pay much attention. However, something felt off as I passed by. This guy with the Scream Ghostface costume kept staring at me as I made my way closer to campus. I kept looking back, and he kept standing next to the homeless man, staring at me. That time felt very long. I felt uneasy that if I kept looking at him, he would come towards me, so I thought I should hurry to the lab. However, after walking a little, I suddenly felt this chill down my spine, and when I turned around, the homeless man and the Ghostface man were gone. I was shocked. Could 2 people just disappear in such a short amount of time? Panicking, I ran towards campus, headed inside, afraid of this incident. What was even weirder is that after a couple of days later, the homeless man that's always sleeping on this bench never returned. A couple of students that I've talked to apparently said he was taken by the police for disturbing the peace, but I know that can't be true. Even so, my excitement towards Halloween has always been disturbed by this incident, even to this day.